So when we last left off, we had just finished creating the form. And if I go to SD, I can see in the form, there's my form, and you can kind of see how the light's hitting the form and everything like that when I'm in shaded mode. But I'm going to go back to hidden line mode, and I'm going to just say finish mask, because by finishing the mask, it gives me an opportunity to come out and save. What you don't want to do to people, since you can't save your actual Revit file while you're in the in-place mask editing mode, when you get to a good place, sometimes it's good to get out of your mask and save it. And then what we can do is we can go back in. And when we go back in, we can take the opportunity um, to just sort of save and make sure we don't lose a lot of work. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll click on this mask, and we'll go to edit in place. Right, and we'll go back to edit in place, and let's go to a south elevation, right? And on the south elevation, I'm going to set it to fine, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go to the wireframe mode. And I like to set it on wireframe mode when I'm doing this part of the work, because this is where it can get a little tricky and challenging. Okay, so first things first, we're going to work with the void portion of our facade now. We got the actual first part of the facade, but now we can go into the void portion of it. So let's do this. Let's go up here, and first let's set our work plane to building face. Okay, remember that one we drew earlier, building face. So we'll say okay, and we're going to say show. And in the process of showing it, now we can go up here to the model tab and we can draw a rectangle. I'm going to draw this rectangle. I'm going to make sure, again, I go from level 5 down to level 1. I don't want to go from the parapet down, from level 5 to level 1. So on the edge of my building right here, I'm going to draw, I'm going to come over about 6 inches, and you'll see why later. I'm going to come over, I'm going to try and make sure I'm 6 inches, and that can be a little tough in here because what I don't want to do is, you know what? For a second, I'm just going to go to hidden line. That'll make this a little easier. So go to hidden line and then draw this rectangle. All right, it'll be a lot easier for me to get to 6 inches when I'm not trying to snap to that curtain wall. So I'm going to get to 6 inches, right? And now I'll go back to hidden line. Oops, I'm sorry, go back to wireframe, and I can see my object there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say AL for align, and I'm going to say align to level 1, the bottom of this little rectangle I drew, right? And now I'm going to select that rectangle, and I'm going to move it over 6 inches. I'm going to say move 6 inches, right? Now that rectangle is 6 inches from my edge, all right? And now I'm going to click on that rectangle, and I'm going to say create form, and I'm going to say void form this time. And I click on void form, and then I'm going to go to a 3D view. And while I'm in the 3D view, you see that void form up against the building right there? I'm going to grab this green, and I'm going to drag it out, right? Now that can get a little tricky sometimes, but there, you see I pulled that out, and now that cut a little void. So you see how we're going to be creating that facade now, right? So you can see how it cut through the front of it, and it's a void. So it's only going to cut through the in-place mass. It's not going to cut through your building. So I'll go back to my south elevation, right? And while I'm in my south elevation, I'm going to hover and go tab, tab, tab. And when I'm on that, I click, and it says, you've got the mask void, Joel. What are you going to do with it? I'm going to say I want to copy here on the copy panel, on the modify panel. And I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to say, give me another, what? 6 inches? Or is it going to be a foot? Let's talk about that for a second. So as you can see, I've got that void there. So I need a solid in here. So really I need to go over an entire foot, not 6 inches. Don't make that mistake, right? So when I select that, I want to say copy this a foot, right? And once I copy it a foot, right, I've got that one, and then I can come over and go another foot, and I got that one, and then I can go over another foot, and I've got that one, and I can go over another foot, and so on, right? But we're not going to do all these just like this. Once I get a few of them in, right, I'm going to come over to the next reference plane. And it's okay that this is going to take a little longer because it makes you patient. And being patient with this is good because you're going to run into problems. Yours may not go as smooth as, maybe the one I'm doing right now. But as you'll see, as I keep going, a foot at a time, hopefully I'm going to hit a place that's going to let me do something. So, and you can see, depending on how much memory you got, this can be somewhat of a hassle. All right. I'm not even going to kid you. It can be a little trying at times. Okay. So I've got those in there and I'm stopping. And we can go out to a 3D view and say, hey, this is working out pretty good so far. Pretty cool. Okay. Pretty interesting. Let's go back to our south elevation. And let's see if we can do something. If I go to, let's say I go to level 5. At level 5, at this point, I really can't see any of this. I'm going to go to Fine and to Wireframe. Oh, wait a minute. I can't really grab anything from level 5 because I'm looking up. But if I go back to level 1, notice at level 1, here are my voids, right? Can I select all my voids? No, I can't select them, but I know if I click there, then I hold down the plus sign and I tab, whoops, took me to another view, right? That's kind of odd. That's the odd thing about this. It's hard to grab a lot of those voids at the same time, and I wanted you to see the challenge in that. So how do we go about selecting all the voids? Well, what I have to do is while I'm not holding down control, if I hit tab, then I can hold down control and click, right? Then I let go of control. I hold down the tab key, tab, click. Oh, but I wasn't holding down control. I wanted you to see that too. Before I add it to the selection set, you gotta hold it down, okay? So let's try this again. I'm gonna click the first one, right? And then they all become visible. Then I hover over the next one, I tab, and then I hold down control and click. I can't go through here. Oh, wait, I can go through here and grab them all. I'm holding down control and I'm using a crossing window. So you see how it can get easy as long as you're patient. And then I select that one, right? And now what I can do, I can say, copy these from this reference plane, maybe to that reference plane, right? Or no, I don't want to do that. What I want to do is I want to say, copy this, right? I want to copy from this edge here, right? From this edge over to this edge, hopefully. And if I do that, let's see what might happen. And this is the tough part, people. Sometimes you got to give it a minute. It says it's not responding. And then let's see if we can get it. And then in it comes, right? Just like that. All right. So then I can go down to the next one and say, copy to there. Let's see what we get there. All right. It takes a few seconds. As you can see on my screen, it says Revit is not responding. That's because Revit's doing a lot of work right now and cutting out that facade. And again, depending on your memory and your processor, it can take a little time. So hopefully mine's going to work. Okay, so see, there we go. We got it to the end. I'm going to hit escape. And hopefully it's going to let me out of the command. We'll give it a second. All right, there we go. So I've got one void sitting outside. I'm going to go ahead and hover and tab and delete that void. All right, I'll delete that one. And I didn't necessarily have to work to make it perfectly even. I probably have one or two that are overlapping, but for the purpose of our lesson, we're we're okay here. You see how that's the last one right there. I didn't want one on the outside. That's why I had 50 feet. If you look at this dimension here, um, this dimension, if we do want a line from here to here, it's 50 feet, or actually it's 50 feet 4 with my facade, but the building itself is 50 feet. So if I go to my 3D view, I can kind of see I've got my wavy gravy facade thing going on here, right? And I like it to look a little more interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my my hidden line view for a minute, and then I'm going to select my whole facade. So I need to select not the voids, but the solid. So I need to hover and go tab, click, and now I can change the material. So I'm going to go here to my category, and I'm going to go down. Let me pull this over so you can see it. I'm going to go all the way down to the wood, and I'm going to click on wood stain. But I'm going to right click, and I happen to know that birch looks really nice here. So I'm going to duplicate this one that says wood and then stain. I'm going to say wood. I'm going to say BIRCH. And then I'm going to click on my asset browser. I'll pull that over so you can see that as well. And I'm going to go in here. I'm going to search for birch. Right? And when I get there, it gives me that. I'm going to go to Appearance Library, and I'm going to go to Birch Glossy. It's pretty fancy. I like that. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to replace in mine. I'll close this, and now I've got Birch, and I've got all the properties for that. That's kind of nice, right? And I'll say Apply, OK. And now, if I go back to a shaded view and go to Find, I've got a real interesting looking facade, don't I? Very good. So in the next video, we're going to go in, we're going to figure out how we're going to cut openings, because as you can see, if you look at my south elevation, I've got all these, some of these openings, but I'm not going to cut it in every opening. You're going to see I'm going to cut it in a few of them, and then I'm going to move a few of them around. How am I going to do that? Again, we're going to use voids. And I'll go ahead and finish my mask, right? Again, so I can get out. And it's always a good thing to do to save from time to time when you get to a good stopping point in the editing, because you can always go back in and edit your mask. You don't have to do it all at once. So coming back out to my 3D view, I can see there's my nice facade. I look in the south elevation. I can go to a shaded view. There's my facade. I'm going to go in and cut the openings, and we'll pick that up and do that in the next video.